Sit down to dinner and remove the plate. Now remove the fork, spoon, napkin, and the drawer where they normally wait. Your food is hot and wet. Everyone reaches toward one container. Elbows collide, a knife passes between hands, and your place setting is the patch of table defended by your forearm. It is dinner with assigned seats but no traffic lanes. Humans managed meals like this for an astonishingly long time. So when did dedicated plates and eating utensils become normal? And why does the answer change with every object? The obvious answer is that people simply use their hands. And they did. Hands are free, washable, and difficult to forget at home. But change the meal from a dry piece of food to hot porridge, oily stew, or sauce, and the perfect all-purpose utensil suddenly has temperature limits. What problem did a dedicated dish solve? It gave liquid a wall, grease a boundary, and each diner a small territory. Eating without one is possible in the same way eating a full curry from its delivery wrapper is possible. The packaging can do the job. It just keeps reminding you that it has another job. Containers came very early. Pottery fragments from Xianrendong Cave in China are about 20,000 years old, but they do not prove that everyone had a ceramic plate. Cooking pots, storage jars, serving bowls, and personal dishes solve different problems, while wood, gourds, shells, and leaves often vanish from the record. Which came first at the meal? Bowls, plates, spoons, knives, forks, or chopsticks. There was no single global order because different foods created different toolkits. Even an exciting discovery can mislead. At Longkuzhuang in China, archaeologists found bone sticks dating to roughly 6600 to 5500 BCE. Some scholars propose that they were very early chopsticks, but similar objects had also been classified as hairpins, and the excavation itself initially used that interpretation. Why does finding an old object not prove that ordinary people commonly used it at dinner? Because shape is not function, and existence is not popularity. Archaeology can hand you the world's oldest looking dinner tool, then quietly ask whether it was holding someone's hair. By Roman times, tables could be impressively equipped. From the late 1st century BCE into the early 2nd century CE, red slip terra sigillata became standard across much of the Roman West. Workshops made dishes, bowls, cups, and sauce vessels in large numbers. Yet food still arrived in bulk, and diners used fingers, bread, and spoons. Some dishes were individual, others served the group. Specialized objects were everywhere, but not necessarily a matching trio beside each person. The modern cutlery drawer is a peace treaty among tools whose ancestors rarely attended the same meal. The knife makes that especially clear. A knife is ancient, but a dinner knife is a social redesign of a general tool. In medieval Europe, guests often carried their own narrow pointed knives. The blade cut food, the point speared it, the sheath brought it to dinner. That seems efficient until the same object cutting your meat is also the sharpest weapon at the table. So is the knife the first piece of silverware? Only if a pocket knife counts as formal service. When forks later became better at spearing food, table knives could lose the point. In 1669, Louis XIII even prohibited pointed knives on French streets and dinner tables. The obvious solution, give everyone a sharp personal tool, had created a second problem with excellent stabbing potential. Plates followed an equally uneven route. In parts of medieval northern Europe, a thick piece of stale bread called a trencher could take the place of an individual plate. Food came from central platters and landed on the bread. Before about 1500, that was normal enough to leave written instructions about the bread's size and age. Later, wooden and pewter trenchers became more common. Pottery plates were not generally used for eating in that region until the late 16th and early 17th centuries, and wood persisted much longer. If your plate absorbs the gravy and can be eaten or given away afterward, dishwashing has briefly achieved perfection. But the fork had the strangest journey. Why did it face a different adoption problem from the spoon or knife? Spoons answered an obvious need, and knives already did many jobs. A fork could look unnecessary when fingers, bread, and a knife already moved food. The Metropolitan Museum records rare fork use connected with Byzantium and Venice in the 11th century. Later medieval forks used for fruit or serving, and wider acceptance only after the Middle Ages. Forks reached France in the 16th century and were accepted in England in the 17th. Cuisine mattered too. A table full of pottages, broths, and stews did not make a fork urgent. Keep your hands clean sounds unbeatable until the tool makes you look like the person who brought laboratory equipment to lunch. The fork could win the engineering problem and still lose the dinner invitation. This is where silverware becomes a trap. It sounds like one invention delivered in a velvet box. In reality, it bundles scooping, cutting, piercing, serving, and portioning into one modern category. Most utensils were never silver. Pewter, wood, bone, iron, ceramics, and later industrial metals did the everyday work. East Asian chopstick traditions followed another path, shaped by different cuisines and serving practices. No culture finally learned to eat properly. Each meal taught people which tools were worth making, and those meals kept changing the tools. A deep dish works beautifully for broth and badly for slicing. A flat surface steadies solid food but turns soup into a table cleaning experiment. Roman potters changed dish shapes as menus and habits changed. Some later dishes grew deeper, better suited to liquid foods lifted with bread or a spoon. The fork became more useful when food arrived in pieces it could grip. Chopsticks worked with food prepared in bite-sized portions. Form followed the meal, then manners pretended the form had always been obvious. Put a modern clarin steak knife beside a bowl of porridge, and it becomes expensive scenery. Put one shared spoon into a crowded pot, and suddenly the object is useful, but the cue is the problem. The history of tableware is not a parade from crude to refined. It is a long negotiation between what is being cooked, how it is served, and how many hands want the next bite. What changed when households moved from shared vessels toward individual place settings? More than manners. A household needed enough dishes and utensils for each person, materials cheap enough to buy, storage space, washing labor, and a meal organized into individual portions. In Britain and parts of Europe, pewter plates and dishes flourished between 1600 and 1800. Then, mass-produced ceramics increasingly replaced metal tableware, and by the 19th century, crockery was much more widely available. Elite tables had displayed elaborate services earlier, but industry helped turn the display into an ordinary cupboard. The opening elbow traffic finally received lanes, assigned parking, and its own washing queue. So the answer is layered. Humans made containers before written history, and ancient societies used specialized dishes and utensils. In Europe, trenchers gave way unevenly to wood, pewter, and pottery plates. Forks spread widely after the medieval period. Table knives changed with them, and affordable manufacturing helped complete the familiar setting in the 18th and 19th centuries. Elsewhere, different cuisines produced different arrangements, and many meals still center shared dishes. The oldest object, the first dining use, elite fashion, and ordinary household normality are four different dates. Plates and silverware did not civilize the meal in one sudden breakthrough. People kept solving one awkward bite at a time, then turned those solutions into etiquette. After 20,000 years of containers, several centuries of fork suspicion, and a small redesign of the dinner knife, everyone finally received a personal set. The reward was a sink full of separate things to wash.
Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe